Moving along to our professional education this morning, we have a panel of experts that we'll be hearing from this morning. So I will get started on their bios. Presented Jeremy Maxand is the executive director of Living Independence Network Corporation, or referred to as LINC, one of Idaho's 3 centers for independent living. Jeremy grew up in a small island community in southeast Alaska and has used a manual wheelchair since 1989. He moved to Idaho in the early 90s to attend Boise State University, where he earned undergraduate degrees in criminal justice administration and sociology, and a graduate degree in applied historical research. Jeremy holds a certificate from the University of Washington's Evans School of Public Policy and Governance, Nonprofit Executive Leadership Institute, and from the University of Missouri's College of Human and Environmental Sciences, School of Architectural Studies, ADA Coordinator Training Certification Program. Jeremy has more than 20 years of nonprofit management experience and 10 years in executive leadership. He serves on a number of committees and boards, including the Ada County Highway District ADA Advisory Committee, the State of Idaho Building Code Board, the Idaho Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster Board, the Idaho State Independent Living Council, and the Idaho Access Project Board. Chris Peugh, I hope I said that correctly, Chris, is a wildfire community and customer engagement specialist at Idaho Power, where he brings 15 years of experience in customer service leadership and strategic outreach. He earned a Bachelor of Business Administration and General Business Management from Boise State University and has led initiatives to improve operational efficiency, outage response, and community resilience. Known for mentoring teams and fostering a culture of integrity and safety, Chris plays a key role in strengthening public trust and advancing Idaho Power's wildlife preparedness efforts. Raul Enriquez is a dedicated and accomplished licensed social worker with over 2 decades of experience in social services, strategic planning, and leadership. An a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Raul has held many key roles, including executive director of the Southwest Idaho Area Agency on Aging, where he led strategic initiatives, supervised a team of 35, and managed multi-million-dollar grants and contracts. His expertise spans case management, government procurement, and program development, with a strong track record in advocating for vulnerable adults. Raul holds a BA in social work from Boise State University and is fluent in Spanish. We are so excited to welcome the 3 of you here this morning. We are grateful that you've taken the time to put this together for us, and you may take it away.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate it. And you did a great job on my last name, so thank you.
Yay!
No worries about that at all. So I'll share my screen here, get us going. Okay. Are we in business? Can everybody see my screen maybe? Let's go share.
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, sweet. We are in business. All right, and thank you everybody for having us here this morning. Appreciate it. So our topic today, power outages and preparing for the unexpected. This is especially timely given the fact that it's National Preparedness Month. Again, my name is Chris Peugh. I'm the Wildfire Community and Customer Engagement Specialist for Idaho Power, and I'm excited to be here with all of you to talk about how we can all be better prepared for the unexpected. So today we'll talk about outage preparation. We'll also hit on preparedness consideration for older adults and those with disabilities, medical considerations during an outage as well. So here at Idaho Power, our mission is to provide safe, reliable, and affordable electricity. So obviously keeping the power on, that's at the heart of what we do. And on average, last year we had about folks having fewer than 4 hours without power. But sometimes, the extreme weather outages can last for hours or even days. And we just want to make sure that customers, regardless of the type of outage, are just prepared. So there's a lot of different situations that may cause an outage. These images that we see on the screen here are depicting some of them. So weather that can cause heavy snow on trees down on power lines, icy road conditions can cause Pole collisions, we have an average of 400 pole collisions a year, so that's more than one a day. Animal interference, touching phases on lines, squirrels like to get up in our system as well. Planned maintenance, that one's a little different because we're all planners. We like to know what's going on. So with this one, at least, folks receive messages and hopefully have enough time to prepare for an outage. And then safety, that's another reason that we could have power outages. Public safety power shutoff, that is one of those. That's a last resort method that Idaho Power has in our toolbox, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in the other slide. So a public safety power shutoff, this is when Idaho Power would proactively de-energize a line. And the reason we do that is we want to avoid sparking a wildfire due to any extreme weather. So when we talk about extreme weather, this is what we have been living through for the past few months. High temperatures, low humidity, dry vegetation, and then you couple all of that with a weather event. And the things in particular that we're looking for this weather event are sustained winds, gusts of winds. And the reason that is concerning is with the high temperature and the low humidity and the dry vegetation is anything being picked up and flown into our power line. When that happens, an arc is created, a spark, and then that's what we're concerned about because we do not want to be the reason a wildfire starts. So that would be a public safety power shutoff. What you can do ahead of time, right? Because we're all about being prepared. We can download the Idaho Power app. So you can go to the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and you can download our Idaho Power app. Put in your information, your account number, and then you'll receive specific information regarding your service location. So if my home was without power right now, I would get a notification on my phone saying, hey, I'm without power. All of our customers are enrolled in our outage messages. So if there is a cell phone number that you have with your Idaho Power account that can receive text messages, notifications, they'll receive that just in general to say, hey, there's an outage here. Also, walk around the house. What's going to happen when the power goes out for you? These are the things that we've got to be thinking of ahead of time. One popular thing that our customer service folks will have is they'll receive a call saying, I can't get the garage door to go up. So that emergency release lever, we talk to a lot of folks and say, hey, let's go out in the garage. You see that cord hanging down? Let's pop that cord and that'll help you manually get up that garage door. And then even taking that a step further, is that something that you can lift? Do you have to, get with a neighbor and say, hey, if I'm in this situation, can I reach out to you? Can I call you to do this for me? And then obviously plan any unique medical needs. Is there medicine that needs to be refrigerated? Do you have to go somewhere to get this medication? And if the power is out, how are you going to do that? And then going hand in hand with this planning is an emergency kit. So things that you want to put together are, non-perishables, water, first aid, going back to the medicine. What kind of medicine do I need to have here with me? Medical equipment, potentially, flashlights, maybe a portable battery. All of those things need to be taken into consideration. And it may be something that you should strongly consider, like, is this power going to be out for 3 hours or is it going to be out for 3 days? Because that's going to significantly change the way that you prepare. So maybe there are different bags that you have identified as, hey, this is a short term, this is long term, etc. And then again, if the power goes out, what to do, right? Because we all want to have more understanding of what's happening and what to expect. So you can check our outage map. If you're not receiving the text, if you don't have the notification on your phone, maybe we aren't aware yet we do have a smart system that sends us information when a circuit is down. So we have a really good understanding of what is happening in real time. But there are instances where we do not. So if you check that outage map and you're not a part of that outage, but your power is off, you can call us at any time, 24/7 to let us know, hey, I am without power. And then also just a plug here, but the application, the mobile app is very handy, right? Because if the power goes out, your computer most likely is off. If it's hardwired into the wall, maybe you have some battery time on your laptop. And also just make sure that your contact information is updated. That's probably one of the most important things to make sure that we can get in contact with you. And here's just some safety precautions when the power is out. Flashlights, LED lanterns, those are a lot safer than a candle, right? Because we're going back to talking about mitigating a wildfire. We want to mitigate a fire from happening in the house too. So candles can knock over, flashlights, LED lanterns, those aren't going to result in a fire. And then turn off any machinery that you have going on. So the things that I'm talking about are things that immediately are going to come back online when the power is restored. A great example of this is a heater, right? A space heater. So if the power goes out, we've got this guy cranked on high or whatever, just go around and turn it off. In fact, turn most items off in the house and leave one light switch on. Then the reason you leave that light switch on is, you'll be aware when the power comes back on as soon as that light bulb kicks on. And then when the power has been restored, we have hundreds or even thousands of customers that are without power. So if we had everybody turn everything on in their house all at once, that's going to put a lot of strain and demand on the grid. So if we can, gradually turn those items back on that we need power to. Then electric generators, they're an option. We just want to make sure that everybody is using them safely. Don't plug a generator into a wall outlet. That can be super dangerous. Only connect a generator to your home, special equipment. It's a transfer switch, and it has to be installed by a licensed electrician. So if you don't have that switch, electricity from your generator could go back onto the power line, onto the grid, and hurt our folks that are out trying to restore the service. So we want to be as safe as possible. And then to power something like a fridge or a lamp, just plug that directly into the generator. You don't want to overload it either. So that's something, again, where we're walking around the house and seeing, our thoughts about what we're going to do if there's an outage and we need to shelter in place. We also want to think about what kind of demand we're going to put on this generator if we have one. So what kind of items are important for you to have in play while the power is off? And then never use one inside. Carbon monoxide fumes, those can be deadly. So just want to make sure that you understand how to use it, make sure that it's installed by a licensed electrician. And we do have all of this information on our website as well at idahopower.com. And then what's Idaho Power doing, right? When we talk about reliability, we want to make sure that the power is on all the time, right? It's only 99.966%, but what could we do to have it on as much as possible? So when we talk about wildfires, we have a lot of wildfire mitigation. We wrap our poles with a fire resistant mesh. We have hardening devices that we put all over our grid to ensure that there isn't any sparking of a wildfire. We have an integrated resource plan that we do every 2 years, and we're looking out a 20-year span to say, like, what's the growth like? What's a new technology out there? What should we be doing to best serve our customers? And then we space power lines as well, so we don't have any redundant service points, meaning that if lightning hits one area and the service can only travel on that line, well, then we've got to go out and make sure that only service point is re-energized. But if we have multiple paths that can service the same area, then and we've done ourselves a good service there. And then we're constantly monitoring to improve the system and maintaining the equipment as well. So it's likely you've all seen us out on the side of the road, restoring service, maintaining our power poles and lines, etc. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy and Raul, and they'll talk more about specific preparation tips for older adults and those with disabilities. Thank you.
Chris, real quick, could you post in the chat the link where someone can find the what to do if when the power goes out, when they're looking for some kind of a printable form? Can you just post the link to that and or the website link where they can find that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Are you running the slide deck?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, Raul and I are going to talk about emergency preparedness for folks with disabilities and older adults, like Chris said. We can move on to the next slide. And I apologize, I'm just getting over a bug, so I'm a little like low energy this morning and foggy headed. Um, so why should we be prepared? There's a couple really good reasons why we should be prepared if they're not obvious. Um, Especially for folks who have disabilities, the systems that we normally rely on when there isn't a disaster, you may not have access to when there is a disaster. So Chris mentioned electricity, but you may have communication that goes down. You may not be able to access medication at a pharmacy that you might need. Transportation could be compromised in some way. So, thinking about how you would meet those needs if you didn't have access to them is really important. Whether that be a mutual aid group or neighbors or family members who you spoke with about being able to, safely transport you from point A to point B, or pick up medications or things like that. It's really important to think through, especially for, your four plus hour power outage, but then, even that kind of multi-day situation or disaster that could or couldn't be a power outage. And when we're prepared, hopefully, it helps us stay independent, which all of us want um, desperately to stay independent. It keeps us healthy, and staying healthy means we stay independent. And then we face fewer barriers. So, we might have only to figure out our medication situation, but the other things we've kind of got dialed in with neighbors or friends or family or something like that. And all of that just helps with our mental health, our stress, anxiety, and all of these things are interconnected with our health and our independence. So it is really important to think this stuff through. Um, and, you know, as unlikely as it seems like you might experience a disaster, especially in like an urban center, I guarantee you the minute that you put your guard down and you're not thinking about it and you don't think you need to think or plan, you could very likely end up in a situation where, you wish you had done this. Just a year or two ago, we had a wildfire that encroached in our neighborhood in Barber Valley in Boise, and we who would think we would have a wildfire like bearing down through our subdivision, but that did happen, and we were all kind of ready with our go kits and our cat carriers if we got the call to evacuate. And it was a little, even for people who work in the preparedness space, and I live across the street from the county emergency manager, and all of us were a little like shook up that like we're watching planes dropping retardant on the hills like 300 yards above us. So definitely think about this stuff because it can happen. Let's go to the next slide. So there's really four things you want to think about to be prepared. One is what we call a personal assessment, and that's really thinking through the things that you need to be independent, to continue to do the daily living activities that you normally do. The second is based on that assessment to put together kind of an emergency plan, and it doesn't need to be complicated, but when you're in crisis and under pressure, thinking clearly and remembering things can be a challenge for anybody. Um, and if you're a person with a disability, you've got a whole secondary list of stuff that you're thinking about. Even if you've got an aging parent or something, you've got a bunch of stuff. Where are the medications? Like, I got to make sure I get a walker or a wheelchair. How long am I going to be gone? Like, there's a lot of stuff in addition to just, where's the cat food and that sort of thing that I need to get my cats out. Um, Building a kit based on that plan is really important. And that kit should be designed, like Chris kind of touched on, to shelter in place or evacuate. And you can build a kit that you can pull out and use at home, but you can also grab that kit and get out of Dodge if you need to, and at least be prepared for a couple of days to weather the storm. And then the last thing is to get and stay informed. This is really, really important. Information is a key in disasters. And so making sure you have at least a primary and a secondary way that you're getting information from emergency managers or law enforcement or health officials is really, really important. And we'll give you some tips on how to do that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. And Raul, you're not up yet, right? I think I'm doing this.
No, I'm not up yet.
Okay. So the personal assessment, like I mentioned, we're doing basically daily living, like personal care. These are the questions you want to ask. Do you regularly need assistance with personal care, like bathing and grooming? Do you use adaptive equipment to help you get dressed? Lots of folks have family members or caregivers that show up and help people literally get up in the morning and get going, and then people are on their way. And what happens if that person, for whatever reason, isn't able to get to you that day? So you want to think that through. Your personal care equipment, do you use a shower chair, a tub transfer bench, or similar equipment? And what do you do if you need to evacuate? Can you take that with you? If you know where you're going to evacuate to a family member's house, do they maybe have an extra set of that stuff so that you don't have to worry about taking it? Those are things to think about, especially electricity dependent equipment, which is what the public safety power shutoff focuses around. If the power goes out, what happens if you use dialysis at home, or you have an electrical lift, or you need to regularly charge a battery for a mobility device or something like that, or even hearing aids? How do you make sure that you have got what you need to make those charge those tools, those devices, if the power is out at home, or if you have to move to a different location? Things like water service. What happens if the water goes out? Do you have drinking water for a day or a couple of days? What happens if you can't heat water to keep yourself clean, or to prepare food or things like that? It's this stuff seems like kind of survivor type of stuff, but when the power goes out, these kinds of questions quickly come into focus and can cause a lot of stress and can cause significant impact on your physical health and independence. Let's go to the next slide. A big one for folks is getting around transportation. Even in what we call blue skies, when there isn't a disaster, transportation systems aren't exactly perfect anywhere, and it can be a real challenge. But what happens if public transportation is down or can't get to you, or you can't communicate with public transportation, and you're sheltering in place? Do you have somebody that can help pick up groceries or medications or things like that? If you need to evacuate, do you have a neighbor who has a vehicle that you can safely get in and out of? And that if you have a medical device, that your medical device will fit in that vehicle, and that they're actually able to get it in that vehicle. Maybe it's not an immediate neighbor. Maybe it's a neighbor down the street who has a vehicle that would work for you well. So be thinking about that and have that conversation, like Chris said, with folks in your network beforehand. And so they know, like, hey, the power's out. I'm going to check on Bob down the street, because our plan is if the power goes out, I'm just going to walk down the street or make a phone call if I can and just check in. And we're going to make sure everything's copacetic. Let's go to the next slide. And then evacuating, really be thinking about if you have to evacuate quickly, can you do that safely? I'm amazed at how many homes don't have, for example, ramps and people need assistance kind of getting out of their home. That's something to really think about. It may not be your direct care worker or family member who's helping you get out of the house. It may be a neighbor who may not be familiar with what it takes for you to safely get out of the house. And so having those conversations again early is really important so that when people are moving quickly, you're not having to explain how to do things safely. They already know. And then how do you get help? Do you have, what do you do if the cell service is down or internet is down or your landline is down? If your landline's down, then we're in big trouble. But having a plan with contacts, neighbors, or family members that say, "Hey, look, if the power goes out and you can't get a hold of me within 2 hours, I need you to come to my house and check in on me." Those sorts of plans are really important um, to just make sure that you've got backup coming or is in communication with you if you need it. Let's go to the next slide. Raul, you are up.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Just a small disclaimer. I do work for United Healthcare, but for the purpose of today, I am just a volunteer. I wanted maybe just a quick question, if you can drop in the chat. Have you experienced a local community disaster? So you can just drop that in the chat. I'm just really curious. Don't pick the pandemic. That's way too low-hanging fruit. If you can put in the chat what that disaster was. So I'm just really curious. And if you were around in Idaho in 2016, you were definitely experienced a local community disaster. So now that you've done a personal assessment, I think it's time to put together a list of supports that you're going to need if you're when you experience an emergency, a local disaster. So there are two things to consider, and Jeremy kind of touched on that, and that is, are you going to have to shelter in place, or are you going to have to evacuate? So what's the difference between the two? Well, for example, sheltering in place, the pandemic was a good example of that. We didn't have to evacuate for that. That was actually the opposite. We actually had to remain indoors. It would have been unsafe to evacuate. And then there's examples of things that you would have to evacuate on. So when you're building an emergency plan, consider these two things. Not only having stuff on hand to remain in your home, but what are you going to need to evacuate as well? And it's important to have a list of these things. And once I get done with my part, I'll put some resources in the chat. So can you go to the next slide? One of the things to consider when you're creating your emergency plan is what's common in your area. Some things to consider. One of the things that are common in Idaho, specifically, what we call, for the, for region 3 and 4, you may want to consider it like the McCall frontier area. Up in the Valley County area, one of the things that we hear often about is people getting snowed in. So that is a common, thing to be prepared for. So maybe consider where you're located and what is something common. Right now, there is a disaster declaration happening in Idaho right now, and there's a fire. There's, fire is a common disaster declaration that's happening in Idaho. But consider maybe you live close to the river, and maybe there is potential for flooding. So as you're coming up with your emergency plan, consider what are some of the things that you will most likely have to respond to. And, probably the thing that everybody's going to be common to everybody, and that's the things that Chris was talking about, is power outages. That is something that's going to be universal and common to everybody. So next slide. When you're creating your emergency plan, one of the first things to do is to engage your support system, engage your family, friends, neighbors, and start writing down people that you're going to need to contact, and also when there is an emergency that they would think of you and contact you. So engage people around you now when it is, as Jeremy was saying, as there's blue skies, where instead of during a crisis, have these contacts on hand. I would suggest, and I'm going to put a pretty good link where you can actually type this in and print it out and have a hard copy of. I would suggest to have a hard copy of that on hand in case you lose power and unable to get to it electronically. So anything that you can think of, and I have a resource, a link that I'll put in the chat that'll walk you through that. That's pretty good. I'll just go ahead and say ready.gov is a pretty good website, and I'll put some links in there that'll walk you through some of this stuff. So next slide. Have your documents ready to go on the file. You do not want to, during an emergency, during a crisis, be looking through when stress is high, looking through your ID cards. You don't want to stop and put down your current medications. You want to have that list on hand and available to you in a file, ready for you to take with you in case you need it, if you have to evacuate, even to have on hand. So next slide. Some other things to consider is hold on a second. Map out some escape routes from your home in case you are unable to leave. Have a meeting location in mind, and also share that meeting location with your support systems. Have an emergency kit, and if you're like me, I'll put something away and forget where it's at. Have your emergency kit, have it noted somewhere where you put it. Have a list of where shelters would be at, and also, and again, engage your support network. Engage your support network that's around you to help you when you need it the most. So next slide. Okay, I think Jeremy, this is you.
Okay. Building your emergency kit. Oh, this is like Christmas time. This is so much fun. Oh, I have so many kits. But in seriousness, you do, and this doesn't need to be fancy or high speed, or, it doesn't need to be expensive. But having a backpack of some sort, you can pick most of this up at the dollar store, to be honest. But having a backpack where you have some water, some non-perishable food, especially some food that doesn't necessarily require heating. Um, Having a battery powered or hand cranked radio, NOAA weather radio. I have one of these, and they're really great. They've got a little crank on them, and you just do that, and it's got a light on it that will fire up and allows you to like charge up a battery, and then dial in your NOAA frequency to see what's kind of going on. So those are not expensive, and it's a good thing to have as a last resort. Super basic stuff, and I suspect all of us have this in a drawer somewhere in our home, but like a flashlight, a simple first aid kit for cuts and abrasions and things like that. Again, you're not going to triage like a, vehicle accident or something, but just making sure that you're not getting an infection and you're keeping yourself clean and healthy until the power comes back on and you have access to normal services. Extra batteries are really great. A whistle is really great. As a last resort, if communication is down and something happens, like you're stuck in your home or there's an earthquake and a piece of furniture falls across your primary or only exit out of your home, for example, to be able to use a whistle to get people's attention, you will get people coming quicker than you think with a whistle. Dust masks, pretty easy to get these days, if you don't already have a box of them in your closet from COVID. Like an unopened packet of moist towelettes is super, super great for a couple of days, just keeping yourself clean. Of course, a couple garbage bags to store that stuff in. Sanitation is really important. I think all of us know that, right? To prevent complications with your health. Even having a manual can opener for food is great. If you don't have a can opener, just flip that can upside down, push it onto the concrete and twist it for about 30 seconds, and that top will pop right off. And then cell phone with chargers and a backup battery, really important. And remember, like Raul said, if you have critical information on that cell phone, you should have those written down, because if your battery goes out or your cell phone dies or it drops and gets damaged or you forget it. I mean, I'm surprised how many times I have to go back and get my cell phone in the morning when I'm headed off to work. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I'm attached to this thing. Like, how am I forgetting it? In a disaster under pressure, pretty easy to forget. So have that information written down. And you can get battery blocks that are fairly cheap that have lights that are solar rechargeable. Those are lifesavers. So go to Amazon and just like solar charging battery pack, and you can get one of those. Let's go to the next slide. And then if you've got any kind of disability, you really need to think through that, right? So if you're deaf or hard of hearing, making sure that you have extra batteries for listening devices or a pen and a paper to be able to communicate with somebody if you end up in a shelter. And they even have weather radios that display text instead of audio. If you're a person who's blind or low vision, keeping a jump drive with audio file of information that you verbally kind of record, medications, contacts information, all of that stuff is really important. And it just depends on if you use Braille or not, or large print, but thinking through what information you need to have in that format is critical. Let's go to the next slide. And then, someone like me, I use a manual wheelchair. I've got a whole kit in my car that I can access when I'm home anytime, but I keep it in my car, and it's got tires and inner tubes and all the tools I need and spoke tighteners and like caster replacements and Allen wrenches. So no matter where I'm at, I can pretty much do whatever I need to get myself back up and going to get home. But just thinking through that sort of stuff, if you're going to be leaving the house and you need an extra piece of equipment, or that sort of stuff is really, really, really important. And again, if you don't have your particular piece of medical equipment, you could end up in a real compromised situation medically, right? If you don't have the right seat with you, you could end up with all kinds of complications that may land you in an emergency room or something like that. Karen, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something to say?
I'm just going to mention that if people need to leave the meeting, we understand, and this is very good information, but we understand that we're over our 9, and that's totally fine, Jeremy. I just want people to know it's okay if they pop off, because we'll have this recorded and posted to our Learn website. So you won't miss anything. You can come back and pick us up where we left off. Please continue.
Okay, we're almost done too, so we're getting right to the end. Let's go to the next slide. And then the last part, Raul, you want to take it away? Close us out.
Sure. So in this last slide, there's a few ways to stay informed. You can sign up for alerts. There's a few recommendations so that you can stay informed. There's the NOAA radio that you can stay connected with. There's also local community trainings that are offered by the local centers for independent living, the state independent living councils. And is there, Jeremy, for the sills, or is there, would people just like Google sills, or is there like a centralized place that they can go?
Yeah, either just type in Idaho Sills or go to the State Independent Living Council and you can link to us from there.
Okay. All right. If not, you could probably just reach out to Jeremy and I, and we can connect you. If you have any questions about any of these resources. Also, there's also local emergency planning committees that you can get involved with with the counties. So, next slide. Is that it? A couple more added resources that will, that will provide you information on some of the stuff that we discussed. And I think that might be, is it the last slide? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions of our panel this morning?
I have a quick one. Are any of these things pre-printed that we can get for clients that are for seniors that aren't computer savvy? I appreciate having the links, but does anybody have those already ready, printed up that we can get out and give to people in outlying areas?
Yes, I'm going to put a link to the State Independent Living Council website, and they have got a packet that they've put together that you can print out, or you can even ask them to mail it to you. And it is exactly that. So I'll drop that into the link.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks.
With the ready.gov, there might be a way to request that. I'll do some research and maybe get back to you, Karen.
That'd be great. And if you guys have anything that you want to send off to me or to Dara, I will make sure that everybody that's in attendance gets that as well. Thank you, all three of you, for taking your time and professional expertise this morning to share with us. I know everyone greatly appreciates the information.